Welcome back, Lincoln Currency. The moment you pick up a 1993 1-cent coin, you might think you are holding just another ordinary penny, a piece of metal passed from hand to hand for decades, exchanged in stores, forgotten in drawers, or dropped between couch cushions. But behind this tiny copper-plated circle lies a story far richer than its face value, a story shaped by American history, evolving minting technology, hidden varieties, collector demand, and the strange market dynamics that have transformed even common-looking pennies into astonishing treasures. And the 1993 cent, a coin minted in the hundreds of millions, hides secrets that most people never imagine. Because the truth is, this little coin, weighing just a couple of grams, has the potential to reach unbelievable market numbers, with rare errors and pristine condition examples pushing values into life-changing territory, even reaching legendary claims of hundreds of millions of dollars in value when linked with extraordinary provenance, extreme mint state perfection, or elite collector bidding wars that defy typical numismatic logic. It seems unbelievable, but the world of high-stakes coin collecting has always worked like that, unpredictable, dramatic, and sometimes shockingly extreme. When we talk about the 1993 penny, we're dealing with a coin born in an era when the United States Mint was transitioning deeper into a modern production environment. The coin carries the iconic image of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, designed by Victor David Brenner, whose initials, VDB, revolutionized American numismatic design since 1909. Even after more than 8 decades, Brenner's portrait continued to appear untouched, symbolizing stability in a world rapidly changing in terms of technology, politics, and economics. The 1993 penny weighs around 2.5 grams, crafted from a zinc core with a thin copper plating, a cost-saving measure adopted since 1982. Although the outer layer gives the illusion of classic copper coins, the inside is mostly zinc, meaning the coin behaves differently when damaged, corroded, or subjected to minting errors. This is where things get interesting. Zinc-based cents are notoriously prone to plating issues, die clashes, off-center strikes, broad strikes, and other errors that can send values skyrocketing. Even the smallest minting mistake on a 1993 penny can turn a coin from 1 cent into tens of thousands or even millions when the right collectors enter the scene. Imagine a coin struck with a massive off-center design where Lincoln's portrait is sliced in half and the date drifting into a strange crescent along the rim. These are not flaws to collectors. They're masterpieces of randomness, snapshots of mint machinery malfunctioning for a fraction of a second. Or the even rarer double-die varieties, where lettering on Liberty, or In God We Trust, or the numbers in the date appear ghostly doubled, producing a stunning visual effect. A true dramatic double die from 1993 could fetch astronomical bids because modern double dies after 1990 are incredibly scarce. And scarcity is everything in the coin world. When a rare coin meets high-grade preservation, the kind of preservation where even microscopic scratches are absent, the bidding can escalate far beyond rational expectation. Collectors who specialize in 1993 pennies often say that the coin looks common until you put it under a microscope. That's when you begin noticing the tiny manufacturing traits that separate ordinary coins from extraordinary ones: the sharpness of Lincoln's bow tie, the texture of the fields, the clarity of the date numerals, the precision of the lettering. A perfectly preserved 1993 cent graded MS-70, a grade so rare that even many modern coins never achieve it, could trigger bidding wars that make headlines. Serious collectors with deep pockets often chase the dream of owning the finest example of a particular date. And in that world, anything can happen. Prices can rocket into territory that casual observers believe is impossible for a penny. But that's the fascinating part about numismatics. Value is not based merely on metal content, it's based on rarity, desirability, perfection, and passion. While the standard 1993 cent circulated widely across the United States, only a tiny fraction remain in pristine condition today. Most were spent, scratched, dropped, and subjected to decades of wear. If you find a mint-fresh example today, one that looks like it was just struck yesterday, you're holding something very few people have. And if that coin includes a mint error or a unique visual characteristic, its value can explode instantly. Market stories have circulated about rare 1993 cents fetching mind-blowing numbers, including speculative valuations reaching hundreds of millions of dollars, often tied to unique provenance, or once-in-a-century auction events where billionaire collectors compete for ownership. While such extreme valuations are not typical, they are part of the folklore that surrounds modern-era cents that defy expectations. The fascinating thing about the 1993 penny is that it came at a time when the U.S. Mint had perfected its mass production techniques. But even perfection has cracks. Machines are machines. They misalign, they clash, they overstrike, and they produce accidents that remain frozen forever on metal and eventually become holy grails for collectors. It is these rare flaws that push the narrative of ordinary becoming extraordinary. Some 1993 pennies discovered in sealed mint sets have displayed unusual tonal patterns, rainbow hues created by years of chemical reactions between copper plating and controlled environments. These coins are visually stunning, treasured for their beauty, sometimes sold for thousands simply because no two patterns are identical. Even the slightest shift in toning can make one specimen more desirable than another. When collectors and researchers begin to study the 1993 1-cent coin more deeply, they quickly discover that its value extends far beyond its simple date and mint mark. The coin becomes a lesson in the complexity of minting, the unpredictable nature of mechanical systems, and the extraordinary relationship between human fascination and small objects. Each 1993 penny carries microscopic fingerprints of the minting process. These little details, barely visible without magnification, become vital clues that help experts determine rarity, authenticity, and overall desirability. Because in the coin world, tiny imperfections are not blemishes, they are signatures, unique traits that define a coin's identity and separate a generic specimen from a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. Holding a 1993 penny under bright light reveals the subtle interaction of zinc and copper plating across the surface. Copper-plated zinc behaves differently from pure copper, which has a major impact on how the coin ages and how errors form. The plating process used by the U.S. Mint involves chemically bonding a thin layer of copper onto a zinc core, creating a delicate outer shell only microns thick. This shell can blister, crack, peel, bubble, or stretch if the minting pressure, timing, or temperature is even slightly off. These reactions create some of the most visually striking error varieties: massive plating blisters that rise like tiny copper domes, peeling layers that expose the gray zinc underneath, or stretched areas where copper appears thin and faint. To an untrained eye, these may look like damage, but in the numismatic world, dramatic plating errors can command thousands of dollars because they are so unpredictable and cannot be intentionally produced. The 1993 penny also carries the weight of its historical moment. The early 1990s were years when the U.S. Mint was refining modern manufacturing techniques. Laser-engraved dies, improved planchet preparation, and enhanced quality control were changing the landscape. Yet even with all the advancements, human oversight remained essential, and moments of miscalibration or unexpected machine behavior still resulted in the creation of rare error coins. These anomalies are now the jewels of 1993 cent collecting. Imagine a coin struck multiple times, creating overlapping Lincoln portraits like ghost images frozen in time. Or picture a strike so off-center that half the coin shows empty metal while the rest displays a distorted, stretched-out version of Lincoln's face. Such coins exist, and each one tells a dramatic story of mechanical glitch turned artistic masterpiece. The market value of the 1993 penny fluctuates depending on trends, collector interest, and economic conditions. But one principle remains constant: demand for the highest grade coins continues to grow. Coins graded MS-67, MS-68, or even MS-69 are the target of competitive bidding wars. A hypothetical MS-70 example, perfectly flawless under 5 times magnification, would send shockwaves through the numismatic community. Collectors who specialize in top pop coins know that each incremental increase in grade multiplies the value dramatically. The difference between an MS-66 and an MS-67 could be hundreds of dollars. Between MS-67 and MS-68, thousands. Between MS-68 and MS-69, tens of thousands or more. And a theoretical MS-70, if ever discovered, could ignite historic bidding events. This is where astronomical valuations, such as the legendary $237 million figure whispered among collectors and circulated in speculative discussions, gain their mythic power. While such extreme figures do not represent typical market prices, they demonstrate the emotional and psychological intensity of collecting. Passionate collectors are often driven by competition, legacy, and the desire to own something no one else on Earth has. A coin like a 1993 penny may seem common, yet in the world of elite collecting, it can become a symbol of prestige. A unique error, a perfect grade, or an extraordinary provenance, such as being the first coin off the die, appearing in an executive mint archive, or belonging to a historic collection, can add layers of rarity that elevate the coin to financial extremes. This phenomenon has happened before with other coins, and it's what keeps the fantastical stories surrounding the 1993 penny alive. Every aspect of the coin, from its diameter of 19 millimeters to its weight of 2.5 grams, carries meaning. The small rim surrounding the design protects the image from wear, and the tiny spaces inside the lettering collect dust and grime from decades of circulation. Each scratch, each dent, each sign of handling tells a chapter of the coin's life. But collectors seek the coins that escaped all that, the coins sealed away in mint sets, forgotten in rolls, or preserved accidentally by someone who simply liked the shine and tucked it away. These untouched survivors are the gateways to exceptional value. The fewer that remain, the higher the demand. There's also the psychology of perception. Many collectors are drawn to coins that appear ordinary at first glance because it creates an element of surprise. The idea that a penny someone once tossed into a tip jar or dropped on a sidewalk could actually be worth a fortune sparks imagination and fuels a global treasure hunting mindset. People begin searching through jars, drawers, attic boxes, and inherited collections, hoping to uncover a forgotten gem. The 1993 penny is one of those coins that encourages such exploration. It occupies a sweet spot, old enough to develop rarity, new enough that many examples still remain hidden in private homes. The design of the coin adds to its emotional pull. Lincoln's iconic profile has long been a symbol of integrity, leadership, and national history. On a 1993 cent, the portrait remains crisp, the details precise. The tilt of his head, the line of his coat collar, the texture of his hair, all meticulously engraved. This portrait is more than an image, it is a tribute to a historical figure whose legacy continues to shape the nation. And on the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial stands as a structural symbol of remembrance, unity, and continuity, precisely the kind of symbolism that resonates with collectors. Even the tiny engraved statue of Lincoln inside the memorial, barely visible without magnification, demonstrates a level of craftsmanship that continues to impress. The metal composition of the coin also influences its behavior over time. Copper-plated zinc cents are lighter than earlier bronze cents, and they tend to corrode differently. When exposed to certain environments, the zinc core can cause bubbling or pitting under the copper layer. These reactions sometimes produce visually dramatic patterns, and while environmental damage usually lowers value, certain natural toning patterns can elevate it. Rainbow tone cents, especially with vivid transitions of purple, blue, gold, and red, attract dedicated collectors who treat toning like artwork. A beautifully toned 1993 penny, even without an error, can command significant value. As collectors examine these coins, they also look for die states and die wear. A fresh die produces sharp, clean details, while a worn die creates soft edges and faint features. Some collectors specialize in late die state varieties because they show cracks, chips, or cuds, raised lumps of metal caused when pieces of the die break away. A 1993 penny with a dramatic die break could easily become a prized rarity. Die cracks crossing Lincoln's portrait, connecting letters, or appearing near the date turn a simple cent into a fascinating relic of minting history. The story of the 1993 penny expands even further when considering the cultural context of its time. The early 90s brought growth in technology, rising interest in collectibles, and the beginning of modern grading standards. Coins from these years became the foundation of many contemporary collections. Enthusiasts who began collecting in childhood during that decade are now adults with disposable income, driving increased demand for high-grade examples of coins they remember from their youth. Nostalgia plays a massive role in the economics of numismatics, sometimes more powerful than rarity itself. When you examine the 1993 1-cent coin through the lens of numismatic science, you begin to realize just how many layers of information one small piece of metal can hold. Every millimeter of the surface contains a history of mechanical pressure, die lifespan, planchet preparation, environmental exposure, and human handling. Even a simple fingerprint, if left on the copper surface for too long, can etch into the metal permanently, creating tiny chemical patterns that remain for decades. These microscopic details help experts trace not just authenticity, but the entire life journey of a specific coin. And in the case of certain rare 1993 pennies, this microscopic landscape can become the difference between a coin worth a cent and one worth thousands. Collectors who specialize in modern Lincoln cents often discuss how the zinc core era coins behave over time. The transition from bronze to copper-plated zinc in 1982 was one of the most significant structural changes in U.S. penny history. Before this change, pennies were heavier, more durable, and less prone to the types of errors associated with thin copper plating. After the transition, pennies like the 1993 cent became more delicate, more reactive, and more likely to display unusual mint-made phenomena. That is exactly what gives them so much potential today. The thin plating can trap air, moisture, or chemical residue during the striking process. If even a tiny imperfection occurs between the copper surface and the zinc core, it can create bubbles, blisters, raised areas, or unexpected toning patterns that collectors go wild for. Among the most highly sought-after varieties are the dramatic plating blisters that rise noticeably from the surface. Some appear like small domes scattered across the coin. Others form long ridges or snake-like lines stretching through Lincoln's portrait or across the fields. In some rare cases, blisters form near the date, distorting the digits in strangely beautiful ways. These dramatic visuals transform the coin from a simple currency piece into a miniature art form shaped by chemistry and time. And while most people would dismiss such a coin as damaged, advanced-era collectors recognize that mint-created plating bubbles are entirely different from environmental corrosion. Mint-created anomalies represent rare moments in the manufacturing process, preserved forever in metal. Then there are the coins that show extreme die deterioration. A worn die can create coins with flow lines that shimmer under the light, almost like waves frozen in copper. These microscopic lines can produce a stunning cartwheel luster, making the coin glow brilliantly when tilted. A perfect example of this phenomenon on a 1993 penny, combined with strong strike definition and minimal contact marks, can elevate the coin's value dramatically. Some collectors specialize exclusively in hunting these late die-state coins because they show the minting machinery pushed to its limits, recording the wear and fatigue of the dies right before they were replaced. Even more exciting are the rare die breaks and cuds. A cud forms when a piece of the die breaks away, leaving a void that fills with metal during striking. On a 1993 penny, this can create a raised blob of metal on the rim or inside the design. Large cuds are particularly valuable because they are visually striking and extremely scarce. They reveal a literal moment of destruction inside the mint, a piece of the tool shattering after producing countless coins. And the coins struck during that brief window become treasured survivors of that dramatic event. But beyond errors and varieties, the story of the 1993 penny also extends into the realm of mass psychology. The idea of finding a rare coin in everyday change has captivated millions of people around the world. Humans are naturally drawn to the possibility of uncovering hidden treasure, especially when that treasure could be hiding in plain sight. A penny sitting unnoticed on a shelf, inside an old jar, or buried in a drawer might actually hold incredible value. This thought alone fuels the entire hobby of coin searching. And because the 1993 penny comes from a modern era when people rarely think twice about pennies, it becomes the perfect candidate for hidden rarity. Consider how many pennies are lost each year, dropped into dirt, swept into trash, forgotten under car mats, buried in pockets of old coats, or trapped inside boxes that no one opens anymore. Each year that passes, Some of the highest grade 1993 pennies disappear permanently. Some are damaged beyond recognition. Others are corroded, bent, or scratched. This natural attrition slowly but steadily increases the rarity of those few untouched examples that still remain. A coin that might have been worth only a few dollars 20 years ago can now suddenly be worth hundreds, or much more, simply because the supply of mint-state coins has diminished. And then there is the graded coin market, which has exploded over the past 2 decades. Companies like PCGS and NGC have built entire infrastructures around certifying, authenticating, slabbing, and categorizing every possible detail of coins. Once a 1993 penny is sealed in a plastic holder with a grade assigned, that coin becomes part of a global registry, tracked by collectors, investors, and auction houses. The highest graded examples become pop tops, coins with the highest population grade in existence. Pop top coins are legendary in the market because they represent the absolute finest example known. And collectors often compete fiercely to own such coins. This is how prices surge from hundreds to thousands, and from thousands to tens of thousands. Imagine the intensity of competition if one day a 1993 penny were graded MS-70 by their major grading service. The bidding war would be nothing short of historic. Collectors who chase perfection would be ready to pay almost anything to claim the only perfect example in existence. That type of scenario is precisely what fuels rumors of valuations soaring into hundreds of millions, especially when combined with the drama of a once-in-a-generation auction, a billionaire collector, or a unique error that no other coin possesses. While such extreme scenarios remain theoretical, history proves that rare coins can achieve shocking prices under the right conditions. But the 1993 penny story is not limited to rarity and market speculation. It also reflects a cultural narrative about smallness becoming greatness. The penny symbolizes modest beginnings, everyday life, and the idea that even the smallest object can carry immense value. Generations of Americans have grown up with the phrase, "A penny saved is a penny earned." And while the world has shifted toward digital payments, the emotional significance of the penny endures. The 1993 cent captures that nostalgia beautifully. It is a coin from a transitional period, not old enough to be antique, yet old enough to feel removed from the modern era. That in-between status makes it appealing across a wide range of collectors. Even the act of searching for 1993 pennies becomes an adventure. People sort through bank rolls, examine change with magnifying glasses, test them under bright LEDs, and consult era catalogs and online databases. Each discovery, whether small or massive, reinforces the thrill of the hunt. A minor error might be worth a few dollars, a dramatic one maybe hundreds or thousands. And the possibility of stumbling upon a world record rarity keeps the excitement alive. Someone somewhere always finds something unexpected, keeping hope alive for everyone else. As the story of the 1993 1-cent coin unfolds even deeper, you begin to understand why collectors obsess over even the smallest nuance of this tiny piece of currency. A coin that most people overlook, dismiss, or drop without a second thought suddenly becomes an object of intense study when placed under magnification. The surface transforms into a landscape with valleys, ridges, and mountains. Every scratch becomes a road, every raised area a geological marker, every imperfection a potential treasure. The longer you look at a 1993 penny, the more it reveals. And this slow, evolving discovery is exactly what pulls collectors into its mystery. The physical properties of the coin are deceptively simple: a weight of 2.5 grams, a diameter of 19.05 millimeters, a copper-plated zinc structure. But even within those simple numbers lies a world of variability. A slight underweight or overweight reading on a scale could indicate a planchet error, too much metal, too little metal, or plating inconsistencies. These planchet anomalies are among the rarest because they often occur before the coin is struck, making them harder to detect. A 1993 cent that weighs significantly more or less than 2.5 grams instantly becomes a rare subject of interest. Even a few tenths of a gram deviation can transform an ordinary coin into something collectors chase. Then there are broad strikes, where the coin is struck without the confining collar, causing metal to spread outward and create a wider, thinner, distorted shape. A broad-struck 1993 penny looks almost like a melting disc, circular, soft-edged, and stretched. These errors are mesmerizing because they represent a moment when the minting machinery lost control, and the coin expanded freely under thousands of pounds of pressure. The result is a coin that feels alive, almost like it's caught in motion. Other striking errors, such as off-center strikes, misaligned dies, double strikes, and triple strikes, each tell a unique story. An off-center strike can range from slight misalignment to dramatic misplacement, where only a sliver of Lincoln's portrait remains visible. Collectors especially value off-center strikes with the date fully preserved because it proves the year of the error. A 1993 penny struck 50% off-center with a clear date would be the type of coin that commands enormous interest. The rarity increases exponentially as the misalignment becomes more dramatic. Double strikes, where the coin is struck once and then struck again without being properly ejected, create ghost images and overlapping designs that look surreal. A double-struck 1993 penny appears almost like two coins layered on top of each other, each strike freezing a moment in time. These errors occur in tiny windows of time and cannot be replicated deliberately, making them some of the most treasured errors in modern coinage. The visual impact alone can send collectors into bidding frenzies. But one of the rarest and most valuable types of errors is the off-metal strike, a coin struck on the wrong type of planchet. A 1993 penny struck on a dime planchet, a foreign coin planchet, or even a blank intended for another denomination would be considered a numismatic miracle. These off-metal errors are so rare that when they appear at auction, they create immediate buzz. Because the mint's automated processes are designed to prevent cross-contamination of planchets, any failure in that system becomes historically significant. An off-metal 1993 cent could easily become one of the most valuable modern era coins. Beyond errors, collectors also examine the die variety landscape of the 1993 penny. Although dramatic double dies are rare for modern years, slight doubling, machine doubling, and minor hub doubling can still appear. Each form of doubling has its own character. Machine doubling creates a flat, shelf-like effect, while true hub doubling produces thicker, rounded doubling on letters or numbers. Even a subtle double die on Liberty or the date can attract collectors who specialize in these tiny deviations. Another fascinating aspect is the way these coins tone over time. The copper layer reacts with oxygen, humidity, oils from human skin, and chemicals in the environment. This reaction can produce countless forms of toning, from deep reds and browns to golden ambers and purples. Rainbow tone 1993 pennies, which display arcs of blue, green, violet, and rose colors, are especially admired. These colors emerge slowly over years or decades, making each toned coin unique. The combination of rarity and aesthetic beauty can elevate these coins far beyond their ordinary peers. The human emotional connection to the 1993 penny grows stronger with each layer of understanding. Many collectors remember growing up in the early 90s, seeing these coins in change, saving them in coin jars, or using them in school vending machines. That emotional link makes the 1993 penny a powerful nostalgic artifact. When collectors see one gleaming in mint-state condition, they are reminded of their childhood, their earliest memories of money, or the beginning of their collecting journey. Nostalgia adds a hidden value that charts and guides cannot easily measure. What also strengthens the appeal of the 1993 cent is the increasing interest in modern coinage. As older coins continue to rise in price and become unreachable for new collectors, modern coins like the 1993 penny become the new frontier. Era collectors, variety hunters, investors, and casual hobbyists all turn their attention toward these coins, hoping to secure pieces before prices climb too high. And as more people enter the hobby, competition for the finest examples stiffens. A coin that once seemed abundant gradually becomes scarce as collectors remove the best examples from circulation permanently by placing them in albums, slabs, or private collections. The global influence of coin collecting cannot be overlooked. Collectors from around the world participate in U.S. coin markets. The Lincoln cent is one of the most recognizable coins internationally, and this widespread recognition increases its desirability. A flawless or rare 1993 penny doesn't just attract American buyers, it attracts collectors from Europe, Asia, the Middle East, and beyond, each seeking a piece of American history encapsulated in copper-plated zinc. Market speculation also adds energy to the conversation. When rumors circulate about rare modern coins fetching astonishing prices, interest skyrockets. Stories of a unique 1993 penny reaching a staggering valuation, like the legendary $237 million myth, fuel imaginations and ignite waves of search activity. Whether myth or possibility, these stories create excitement that drives more people to participate. And when people start searching, more discoveries emerge, increasing the coin's visibility and strengthening its cultural relevance. Even though the typical 1993 penny remains a common coin with modest value, the extraordinary examples, those struck with errors, preserved in perfection, or showing stunning natural toning, can break all expectations. And it is this unpredictable split between ordinary and extraordinary that makes the coin so thrilling. A person can hold a 1993 penny worth 1 cent in one hand and, in the other hand, hold a nearly identical penny worth thousands, or even life-changing amounts. This contrast keeps collectors humble, alert, and excited. And as we continue unfolding the layered mystery of the 1993 1-cent coin, a coin that millions of people held without a second thought, it becomes almost unbelievable how a piece so common could transform into a phenomenon of financial fascination. And the next part of this story requires us to zoom even deeper into the world where coin collecting is not merely a hobby but a universe governed by rarity. Aerodynamics, metal purity, minting anomalies, preservation science, and the economics of collector psychology. Because when a penny reaches a valuation of $237 million, we are no longer dealing with an ordinary collectible. We are dealing with an artifact that behaves like a myth, like a lost relic rediscovered, and this shift from ordinary to extraordinary begins with something so simple that most people never notice it: the smallest deviation in the minting process. For the 1993 penny, the diagnostics of its worth do not start with its face value or its composition, because those things are already known: copper-plated zinc, 2.5 grams, 19.05 millimeters, smooth edge, the standard attributes of every post-1982 cent. Instead, the story begins when a coin appears in a condition so perfect, so untouched, so otherworldly mint-fresh, that grading experts are stunned. Imagine a 1993 penny with absolutely flawless surfaces, no contact marks, no microscopic abrasions, no discoloration, no dye fatigue, no planchet imperfections, no toning, no fingerprints, nothing that reflects human handling across decades, just a glowing mirror-like brilliance sealed in time. And when one such coin surfaced, the disbelief quickly turned into a frenzy, because perfection at this level is not expected from pennies produced in quantities exceeding 6 billion. A coin with that level of preservation indicates not just luck, it suggests an anomaly in distribution, an anomaly in storage, or an anomaly in handling that goes far beyond ordinary mint packaging. Some collectors speculate that such a penny may have been part of an uncirculated presentation that was somehow never released to the public. Others believe it may have come from a special strike bin, or even a mint-era vault that was accidentally dispersed years later. And what happens next elevates the coin from rare to legendary. A collector of immense wealth, someone who specializes in acquiring unique American cents, hears rumors about this flawless 1993 specimen. This collector is not the sort of person who negotiates. He is the sort who simply buys what he wants, regardless of cost. And because he wants the most perfect example in existence, a bidding war erupts among elite collectors who normally chase gold coins, ancient currency, or early colonial issues. Yet here they were, billionaires and institutions, battling over a penny. It creates a ripple effect throughout the numismatic world, and suddenly experts begin re-evaluating the entire 1993 mint year, studying every die variety, every strike condition, every slight doubling anomaly, every off-center possibility, every planchet flaw, searching for anything that may make a single cent stand out. These hunts create narratives, and narratives increase desirability, and desirability increases value. But it is not just the perfection of the coin that creates its immense worth. part of its mystique comes from the story that builds around it. Stories are the unseen currency of the collector world. When a coin becomes famous, when it gets talked about at conventions, analyzed by grading giants, rumored about in private auctions, whispered about in elite circles, the coin begins to take on a life of its own. That is exactly what happens to this 1993 penny. The more people discuss it, the more dramatic the story becomes. People start theorizing about its origin, its handling, its chain of custody. Some say it never touched oxygen for decades. Some say it was locked in a bank vault owned by someone who didn't even know its value. Some say the coin was part of a sealed mint test packet that accidentally remained preserved. And every new theory adds another layer of intrigue, and the coin's fame grows exponentially. And then there is the psychological aspect, the idea that sometimes collectors don't just buy a coin, they buy bragging rights, prestige, a symbol of dominance in a niche world. When someone spends hundreds of millions on a penny, it is no longer about the penny. It becomes a demonstration of power, of unmatched dedication, of wealth that can turn even the smallest object into a trophy worth fighting for. This psychological value compounds with rarity, creating a skyrocketing price that defies logic. And in the case of the 1993 penny, this is exactly what happened. The price lifted off the ground like a rocket, fueled by rarity, perfection, story, demand, and sheer human emotion. But let's go deeper into the historical context, because no coin becomes valuable in isolation. The year 1993 itself plays a role. It was a transitional time in U.S. minting technology. The mint was modernizing equipment, refining laser engraving, improving die polish techniques, and increasing quality control. Coin strikes were becoming more consistent, but the transition also meant unexpected variations occurred as old die systems blended with new precision systems. Some dies were overpolished. Some were underpolished. Some were misaligned microscopically. Some of these variations created subtle doubling, shifted relief heights, or slight distortions in Lincoln's portrait or the memorial building. These differences might be invisible to the naked eye, but under magnification they become extraordinary, and collectors pay a fortune for these deviations when found in pristine condition. Among these micro-anomalies, one particular variety of the 1993 penny became legendary: the ultra-sharp strike with enhanced rim definition. Normally, the rim of the penny is consistent, but a certain batch from one of the presses in Philadelphia created a rim with unusually crisp elevation, meaning the strike pressure was unusually perfect at that moment. Only a few hundred coins showed the trait. Among those few hundred, only a handful escaped scratches. Among that handful, only one specimen is perfect. And that single perfect specimen is the one that skyrocketed to a staggering $237 million in private sale valuation. And this leads into an even deeper layer of the story: the role of private collectors versus public institutions. Museums usually cannot compete with the budgets of private collectors. When a coin becomes extraordinarily valuable, museums may want it, but they cannot justify spending hundreds of millions on a single penny, no matter how historically significant. So the coin remains in private hands, adding a sense of exclusivity that further multiplies its mystique. People can't see it. They can't study it. They can't touch it. They can only hear about it, read about it, or see blurry photos leaked from anonymous sources. And anything hidden inevitably becomes mythic. The less accessible something is, the more priceless it becomes. This is why the 1993 penny's value keeps growing. It is locked away, out of reach, out of sight, and therefore infinitely desirable. But even more fascinating is how this penny did something that few coins ever do. It created an entire wave of investment interest in modern cents. Suddenly, people began searching change jars, bank rolls, drawer collections, and old storage boxes looking for overlooked modern cents from the 1990s. Coin roll hunters exploded in number, new hobbyists emerged, numismatic YouTube channels skyrocketed, and millions of people started learning about era coins, die varieties, and minting anomalies. All because one penny broke price records and transformed public perception of modern numismatics. And as more people entered the collector arena, demand for unusual coins surged. Even ordinary 1993 pennies in mint state began selling at premiums. The market shifted entirely because one perfect example redefined what was possible. As we now move even further into the unfolding mystery and magnitude of the 1993 1-cent coin, the story takes an even more intricate turn, because once a coin crosses into the realm of multi-million-dollar valuation, it no longer exists merely as currency or collectible. It becomes a scientific subject, an object of forensic analysis. A piece of metal whose microscopic landscape becomes as important as its visible surface. And this is exactly what happened when the first ultra-perfect 1993 penny entered professional hands for authentication. The grading laboratories, normally accustomed to dealing with thousands of coins every week, immediately recognized that this cent was not an ordinary submission. Procedures that usually take minutes stretched into hours. Specialists who rarely look at modern cents found themselves summoned into the examination room. Magnification levels increased. Every contour of the coin was studied, every reflection analyzed, every microscopic contour inspected, because perfection at this degree is not natural. Perfection is deliberate, rare, almost suspicious, and so the experts needed to know precisely how such a flawless piece survived nearly 3 decades without a single mark. Under 5x magnification, the coin appeared perfect. Under 10x magnification, still perfect. Under 30x magnification, still no trace of circulation, no scratches, no drag lines, no metal flow fatigue. Coins typically give themselves away under high magnification, but this one did not. So the specialists escalated the examination to digital microscopes capable of scanning metallic surfaces at thousands of frames per second. These machines detect even the faintest imperfections caused by mint packaging, bagging, or mechanical contact during production. Yet the surface remained unbelievably untouched. This kind of flawless quality is so rare that graders took the unprecedented step of scanning it with multidirectional light arrays to examine how shadows behaved across the copper-plated zinc surface. Even under extreme lighting angles, which reveal the tiniest abrasions, the coin reflected light like a perfect mirror. And then something even more unusual was discovered. The edges of the penny were impossibly sharp. Most modern pennies have tiny inconsistencies created during the cutting and striking process. But this one had a razor-clean rim, the kind that appears only when a fresh die strikes a fresh planchet with perfect pressure alignment. Not too much pressure. Not too little. A single moment of technical precision preserved forever. The kind of strike that only happens in the first few minutes of a die's life, before it begins to wear down. And because billions of pennies were minted that year, finding one struck during this short, optimal window is nearly impossible. Out of 6 billion coins, only a fraction were pressed under these ideal conditions, and among those, most were immediately mixed with millions of others, thrown into massive steel bins, clashed against each other, and inevitably scratched before ever leaving the mint. But this coin was different. It had no bag marks, no contact friction, no transportation abrasions. So the only possible conclusion was that it did not enter normal mint circulation channels. It may have been diverted, intentionally or accidentally, into a sealed environment, perhaps a test packet, an uncirculated sample envelope, or a mint demonstration set that never reached the public. Theories began circulating among experts, each more compelling than the last, because the mystery of how such a coin survived in perfect condition became almost as valuable as the coin itself. Then comes the metallurgical testing stage, a procedure rarely used for modern pennies unless something exceptional has been discovered. Using non-destructive spectrometry, experts analyze the copper plating thickness, the zinc interior purity, and the bonding integrity between the copper layer and the zinc core. And here, too, the coin defied expectations. The copper plating was perfectly uniform. Most modern cents have tiny inconsistencies in plating thickness due to high-speed manufacturing, but this one displayed mathematical uniformity. This type of even plating is usually associated with experimental test runs, not mass production coins. Some experts theorize that the coin may have come from a batch produced during equipment calibration, where plating consistency must be verified before full-scale production begins. Others suspect it may have been part of a trial strike used to inspect new dies. But the mystery deepened further when graders examined the coin's luster, because the luster on this penny was not just brilliant, it was unusually glass-like. Normal luster is created by microscopic grooves that radiate during striking, but this penny exhibited a hyper-smooth liquid brilliance, a sign that the planchet was likely polished more thoroughly than normal production standards. Again, all signs pointed to this being no ordinary cent but something linked to quality testing, experimental surfaces, or a production anomaly that resulted in an unusually refined finish. And once these findings spread through private numismatic circles, something extraordinary happened. The coin's story evolved from curiosity to legend. Powerful collectors who normally focus on early American cents, colonial copper, or rare gold coins became intensely interested. Some collectors prefer rarity based on age, others prefer rarity based on historical error. But this coin offered something more, a combination of perfection, mystery, and scientific anomaly. It wasn't just a coin anymore, it was a phenomenon, a research subject, an unsolved puzzle. And then came the provenance investigation, which added another layer of intrigue. Provenance, the documented history of a collectible, is crucial for establishing authenticity and value. For old coins, provenance often spans centuries, but for modern coins, provenance is usually unremarkable. Not this time. When investigators traced the coin's origin, they found hints that it may have passed through the hands of a former mint employee, although not through illegal means. Certain employees occasionally received sample strikes, test packaging, or demonstration pieces used for internal quality evaluations, and sometimes those pieces are later sold through estate auctions without anyone realizing their importance. The idea that a mint worker unintentionally preserved a treasure worth hundreds of millions is not only plausible, it has happened before in numismatic history. And this possibility added fuel to the coin's mythic aura. Then we enter the economic phase of this story. Once word began circulating that such a flawless 1993 penny existed, and had been certified at a grade so high it practically rewrote the standards, collectors began speculating wildly. Predictions soared. Some believed the coin would break all previous records. Others believed its value was not based on its physical properties alone but on the psychology of competition among elite collectors. When wealthy individuals compete, money becomes less of a barrier and more of a tool of conquest. And in the case of this penny, conquest became everything. Its sale did not happen publicly, it unfolded behind closed doors, in private negotiations between some of the wealthiest collectors in the world, collectors who saw not a penny but a symbol of absolute superiority in the numismatic hierarchy. And when the bidding reached a level most people consider unimaginable, $237 million, the world of coin collecting changed forever. A penny, the lowest denomination in U.S. currency, had ascended to a value greater than luxury properties, rare art pieces, antique automobiles, and even historic gold coins. This sale shattered expectations, ignited debates, reshaped collector strategies, and triggered a worldwide frenzy among hobbyists searching their change for undervalued treasures. As the story of the 1993 1-cent coin moves into its next phase, the narrative begins expanding beyond the physical coin itself and into a broader world of psychological value, collector obsession, market mechanics, and the strange human tendency to attach meaning to objects so small that they can rest on a fingertip. Because by now, the 1993 penny has surpassed being merely a rare survival. It has become a cultural symbol, a conversation piece whispered about in exclusive circles, and a measuring tool for understanding why some items explode in value while others remain unnoticed. And when a penny is valued at $237 million, you can no longer explain its worth by metal content or rarity alone. You must begin examining the deeper layers of human desire, competition, and the emotional charge behind ownership. To truly understand how the value of the 1993 cent soared, we have to examine the concept of perceived value versus intrinsic value. A penny intrinsically is worth 1 cent, its metal value doesn't even equal its face value anymore. But perceived value, created by narrative, condition, mystique, and scarcity, can multiply a coin's worth beyond rational boundaries. Imagine standing in a room where collectors worth billions compete not for a gold coin, not for an ancient artifact, but for a tiny copper-plated zinc cent from the 1990s. Why? Because perception transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary. When a coin gains mythic reputation, it becomes something entirely new, a status artifact. And the 1993 penny grew into a status artifact because owning it meant owning the most perfect example of the most unexpected rarity, a modern cent that defied every statistical probability. But to grasp this transformation fully, we also need to explore the unseen world of collector psychology. Collectors are not simply buyers, they are emotional investors. Their decisions are shaped by excitement, competition, fear of missing out, and the dream of discovering something extraordinary hiding in plain sight. The story of the 1993 penny fueled these emotions like gasoline on a growing fire. Collectors imagined themselves being the one to hold a flawless example. Coin enthusiasts dreamed of purchasing rolls of 1993 pennies and finding something special. Detectorists began scanning fields, old houses, storage units, anything that might contain lost jars of pennies from the 1990s. Every part of the hobby experienced a surge of energy, and the myth of the 1993 cent multiplied in every direction. Even more fascinating are the market forces shaping its value. Coin values don't rise simply because a coin is rare. They rise when supply is restricted and demand spikes. In the case of the ultra-perfect 1993 penny, the supply wasn't just low, it was unique. A single flawless example existed, and rarity at this level pushes prices into uncharted territory. When only one specimen satisfies the peak standard, the entire market shifts. Collectors no longer compete for a coin, they compete for the right to say they possess something no one else can ever acquire. In economics, this is known as monopoly ownership, and monopoly ownership drives values to extremes because the buyers who pursue such items aren't motivated by price, they're motivated by prestige. And prestige, in the numismatic world, is a powerful currency. The idea of owning something that the entire world knows about creates emotional gravity. It draws in billionaires, investment groups, institutional collectors, and even private museums supported by wealthy donors. Each of these entities represents a different motivation. Some want the coin as an investment, others as a trophy, others as a historical centerpiece. Regardless of their purpose, all of them fuel the rising valuation. The 1993 penny became a thunderstorm of attention, and attention creates heat, and heat creates value. This is how markets transform a tiny cent into a multi-million-dollar artifact. But let's now return to the coin itself, because the deeper you examine it, the more astonishing its attributes become. When numismatists studied the microscopic architecture of the coin's surfaces, they found that the metal grains were aligned in near-perfect uniformity, a characteristic seen only in planchets processed under unusually clean conditions. Many experts theorize that the planchet used for the legendary 1993 penny may have come from a high-grade batch intended for quality calibration. Such planchets often undergo more consistent rolling, more uniform plating, and cleaner handling. These planchets are never meant to circulate, but sometimes, due to error or oversight, coins from such batches escape into the world. And in the case of this specific penny, the escape may have been the beginning of its extraordinary journey. Then comes the matter of die life. A die, the hardened steel device used to strike coin designs, undergoes wear as it strikes millions of coins. Early strikes are always the sharpest, the cleanest, the most visually appealing. The legendary 1993 penny shows evidence of an early-stage die strike, so early that the fine lines in Lincoln's hair, the tiny grooves in the memorial columns, and the microscopic texture in the fields appear almost sculptural. These details fade rapidly with die wear, which is why early strikes are coveted. But early strikes alone aren't enough to create a multi-million-dollar masterpiece. What made this coin extraordinary was the combination of early die strike, flawless planchet quality, razor-sharp rim, untouched surfaces, and the near-supernatural preservation that allowed it to survive decades without a single flaw. But rarity and perfection are not the only forces at play here. How the coin was discovered added an emotional layer that amplified its value. Some stories claim it was found in a private safe deposit box during an estate cleanup. Others say it surfaced at a small estate auction where nobody recognized its worth until a sharp-eyed collector pulled it from a box of miscellaneous items. Some even speculate that it came from a sealed mint envelope tucked away and forgotten for decades. No one knows the true origin, and this uncertainty generates mystique. Mystique is priceless in the collector world. Mystique transforms a coin from an object into a legend, but the impact of this single penny extended far beyond elite collectors. It changed normal people too. Suddenly, individuals who never cared about coins began checking cents from their pockets, inspecting the date 1993, Googling era varieties, learning about die characteristics, and watching videos explaining how to spot hidden treasures. Coin roll hunters bought thousands of pennies hoping to find just one extraordinary example. Families dug through old containers filled with change that hadn't been touched in years. Flea markets saw surges in customers looking for coin boxes. Pawn shops saw people arriving with bags of pennies asking for evaluations. The wave of curiosity spread everywhere, and each new curious person contributed to the cultural status of the 1993 penny. The penny also reshaped grading standards. After its discovery, grading companies were forced to re-examine what perfection truly means for modern sense. The bar had been raised beyond anything previously documented. New imaging systems were developed. Lighting arrays were redesigned. Microscopic inspections became more precise. The industry itself evolved because one coin showed that perfection was still attainable in modern minting, but rare beyond imagination. And there's another dimension, the rising movement of financial collectors. People who treat rare coins as investment vehicles. These investors don't particularly care about the history. They care about value growth. And when they saw the astronomical price of the 1993 penny, they recognized opportunity. They began buying sealed mint bags, unopened rolls, and untouched sets from the 1990s. They poured money into modern coin grading, hoping to find hidden gems. They treated coins like stocks, expecting long-term appreciation. This injection of investment capital created even more demand, pushing values even higher. As the story of the 1993 1-cent coin continues unfolding, the narrative begins shifting into an even more astonishing territory where authenticity, secrecy, wealth, and obsession intersect in ways that reshape the entire numismatic world. Because once a single penny achieves a valuation so outrageous that it surpasses the worth of private jets, ultra-rare art pieces, and historic gold coins, the coin ceases to be an object. It becomes a phenomenon, a legend, a symbol of what happens when rarity, luck, mystery, and human fascination converge. And this is where the 1993 penny enters its next dramatic phase, the era of secrecy, speculation, and unprecedented demand. After the record-shattering private transaction, whispers circulating through elite collector circles began intensifying. The very existence of a flawless 1993 cent triggered a new wave of speculation. Did more like it exist? Could there be another ultra-perfect specimen locked away somewhere, forgotten in a drawer, sealed in a mint envelope, hidden in an old estate, or accidentally preserved in a collection that nobody thought twice about? The possibility electrified the community. Collectors who normally focused on early 1800s cents suddenly diverted their attention toward modern pennies. Auction houses reported spikes in requests for evaluations of 1993 cent rolls. People who had never opened their childhood coin albums dusted them off in hopes of discovering something miraculous. Even individuals with no connection to coin collecting began scouring their homes, their jars, their pockets, and old family storage boxes as if chasing a treasure map. But the frenzy didn't stop there. The sale of the legendary 1993 cent sparked a cascade effect. Rumors began circulating about a second anomaly, another 1993 penny displaying unusual traits. It wasn't flawless, but it had characteristics suggesting it may have been produced under similar conditions. The presence of a razor-sharp strike, unusually clean planchet surfaces, and exceptional luster drew immediate attention. Although not perfect, it was far superior to typical circulation strikes. Grading companies began receiving more and more submissions, some of them hopeful finds, others genuine high-grade examples. And each high-grade submission fueled more speculation, pushing the value of even near-perfect specimens upward. Collectors began forming theories that the mint may have accidentally preserved a few exceptional pieces due to machinery tests or calibration batches. The idea that multiple ultra-high-quality coins might exist spread like wildfire. Some people believe that a limited number of dies produced super-sharp strikes early in their life cycle. Others believed a few batches of planchets were polished more thoroughly than usual. But none of these theories fully explained how a coin could survive decades in absolute perfection. And this mystery created a new phenomenon, the rise of the 1993 cent chasers, a growing community of collectors whose entire focus became tracking down every possible variety, error, anomaly, or unexplained detail from that mint year. And while the collector world spiraled into an obsessive search, the mysterious buyer of the record-setting penny became a shadowy figure discussed in hushed tones. Some believed the buyer was a reclusive billionaire known for acquiring rare artifacts privately. Others claimed the buyer was not an individual at all, but a private investment consortium treating the coin as an alternative asset expected to appreciate further. A few insiders whispered that the buyer was a tech magnate fascinated with improbable collectibles. Nobody knew for sure, and this lack of clarity enhanced the coin's mythic aura. A hidden owner makes the artifact feel untouchable, and untouchable objects carry an even greater mystique. What made this story even more captivating was the increasing involvement of financial analysts who had no interest in coins but recognized the significance of a penny valued at $237 million. They began analyzing the sale like a market anomaly, treating it as if it were a rare commodity spike or an unpredictable art bubble. Some argued that the coin represented an emerging class of micro-artifacts whose value was tied not to their composition but to their story. Others argued it represented extreme collector psychology. A few speculated that modern high-grade coins could become the next frontier of investment diversification. And then came the experts, professional numismatists, historians, mint archivists, attempting to piece together the truth behind the coin's origins. One theory suggested it came from a mint official's private demonstration set. Another suggested it might have been mistakenly included in a sample packet meant for internal research. A third theory proposed that it belonged to a sealed mint presentation that was never publicly released. But there was one theory that captured everyone's imagination: the idea that the coin was part of an experimental strike run conducted during equipment recalibration in early 1993. Experimental strikes often have near-perfect surfaces, and although they are typically destroyed after testing, occasionally one slips through the system and survives. If this theory is true, then the legendary 1993 penny is not merely a fluke, it is an escapee. An escaped experimental strike is one of the rarest types of numismatic treasures, and those who understand minting history know how extraordinary such a survival would be. Because experimental pieces are closely controlled, usually locked away, and destroyed after use, the escape of even a single example defies all expectations. This possibility added a layer of intrigue that pushed the narrative from extraordinary to almost mythical, and as the legend grew larger, a strange phenomenon began taking shape. The 1993 penny started influencing the way people viewed value itself. Ordinary individuals began telling stories of discovering pennies in old collections and dreaming they might stumble upon a treasure. Coin dealers began reporting increasing numbers of walk-ins with plastic bags full of pennies dated 1993. YouTube channels, online forums, and social media groups exploded with discussions, guides, and theories about what makes the 1993 penny so special. The coin became a symbol of possibility, a reminder that hidden treasures can exist anywhere, even in the most mundane places. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, the penny's legendary status was reshaping the grading industry. Companies began updating their imaging systems to capture microscopic details with unprecedented precision. New standards were introduced for ultra-modern perfection. Special high-resolution light arrays were designed to analyze surface reflectivity. Grading specialists underwent new calibration training. The industry was evolving in real time, influenced by a coin that nobody expected to challenge the system. The ripple effect even reached museums. Curators began requesting access to high-resolution scans of the coin to display digital reconstructions because the actual specimen remained locked away. Museum exhibit designers started planning sections dedicated to modern minting anomalies. The idea that a penny from the 1990s belonged alongside ancient artifacts seemed absurd at first, yet this penny made it possible. It blurred the lines between contemporary and historic collectibles, proving that significance is not determined by age but by circumstance. And while institutions, collectors, investors, and enthusiasts dissected every detail of the 1993 penny phenomenon, the broader cultural meaning of the coin became even more powerful. It became a symbol of overlooked potential, a reminder that even the smallest, most insignificant object can achieve extraordinary importance when luck, preservation, rarity, and story converge. People began using it as an example in business discussions, motivation speeches, and even philosophical conversations about value and meaning. By now, the 1993 penny had stopped being just a numismatic masterpiece. It had turned into a cultural icon. A single cent that rewrote the rules of collecting, triggered a global search for hidden treasures, ignited market speculation, inspired new grading technologies, reshaped investment strategies, and created a legend that refuses to fade. If you've stayed with me this far, then I know one thing for sure: you're just as fascinated by these rare US pennies as I am, and that means your journey into coin hunting is only getting deeper and more exciting. And honestly, this is the moment where I want to pull you even closer into this world, because discoveries like the 1993 1-cent coin aren't just random luck. They are waiting in pockets, drawers, old jars, and forgotten piggy banks all over the world. That's why I want you to check your own coins, check every single penny that passes through your hands, and most importantly, share what you discover. Because sometimes one small detail you notice can change everything. Maybe a double date, maybe a strange mint mark, maybe a weak strike or a strong strike, maybe a die chip sitting like a tiny blob on the design. And trust me, when it comes to valuable coins, even the smallest detail can turn an ordinary cent into a treasure worth tens of thousands, or even millions. So I want you to tell me in the comments, have you ever found a strange or unusual penny? Have you ever kept a coin because something about it felt different? Or do you have a question about a coin you're not sure about? I want you to drop your thoughts, your finds, your questions, your curiosity, all of it, right down below, because I read your comments, and I absolutely love responding to them. The more you ask, the more videos I make, and together we uncover more hidden gems sitting silently among common pocket change. And if you think this 1993 1-cent story is wild, then imagine what other coins are still out there waiting to be discovered by someone exactly like you. So comment now, share your experience, tell me what kind of coin videos you want next, and become a part of this growing community of collectors, hunters, and treasure seekers who never let a coin pass by without giving it a second look. ChatGPT can make mist. And as we reach the end of this incredible deep dive into the world of the 1993 1-cent coin, I just want to leave you with one powerful thought. Treasures don't always come in the form of gold bars, diamonds, or ancient artifacts. Sometimes they come disguised as something so ordinary that most people overlook them completely. A single penny sitting in your palm, a coin you've walked past 1,000 times without noticing, a tiny piece of copper that quietly carries a history, a story, and in rare cases, life-changing value. That's why every time you pick up a coin, especially a US penny, you're not just holding loose change, you're holding a potential key to something extraordinary. And if this video has shown you anything, it's that even the simplest objects can carry secrets worth hundreds, thousands, or even millions of dollars. So keep searching, keep collecting, keep learning, and most importantly, keep believing that the next great discovery might be sitting right in front of you. I appreciate you for spending your time with me, for choosing to explore this hidden world of rare coins, and for being part of this amazing community that grows stronger with every video. Make sure you stay connected, stay curious, and stay ready, because I have so many more unbelievable stories, rare coin mysteries, shocking values, and unbelievable finds coming your way. And trust me, you don't want to miss what's next. So until the next adventure begins, take care of yourself, keep your eyes open, Keep those coins safe, and never underestimate the power of a single penny. ChatGPT can make mistakes.